In this chapter, we will look at the requirements relating to record keeping as required by the FAYS Act as well as the FAYS General Code. Failure to comply with these requirements constitutes an offence under the Act. The FSP must ensure that records are kept for a minimum of 5 years, except if the registrar allowed specific exemptions in this regard. These records include the following. 1. Records of known premature cancellations of transactions or financial products by clients of the FSP. 2. Records of complaints received and information on whether the complaints have been resolved. 3. Records of ongoing compliance with the requirements of Section 8 of the FAYS Act. 4. Records of instances of non-compliance with the Act as well as reasons for non-compliance. And 5. Records of ongoing compliance by representatives as required. The FSP must ensure that their risk management models include internal control structures, procedures and controls with disaster recovery and backup procedures on electronic data where applicable. In addition to the record-keeping requirements in terms of the FAYS Act itself, the FAYS General Code has the following requirements. An FSP may not disclose any confidential information acquired or obtained from a client unless the client consented in writing beforehand, or disclosure of the information is required in public interest, or disclosure is required in terms of any law. The compliance officer must determine and report whether procedures have been implemented to ensure that confidential information is not improperly disclosed. The FSP must have procedures and internal controls in place that ensure that the client information is securely filed and that such information is not available to any unauthorized person. The registrar has certain powers in terms of the Act to disclose information relating to representatives, key individuals and FSPs, such as debarment, license withdrawals, etc., and such disclosure is not a contravention of the requirements of the General Code. A FSP must have and be able to maintain the operational ability to fulfill the responsibility imposed by the FAYS Act, including compliance with FICA. Section 22 of FICA requires accountable institutions that establish a business relationship or conclude a transaction with a client to keep records of a single transaction or of additional transactions concluded in the course of a business relationship. It also prescribes full particulars and details of the information that must be kept as records, such as the documents used to identify and verify clients, as well as records of all transactions must be retained for a period of at least 5 years from the date on which the business relationship was terminated. In terms of Section 24(1), the record-keeping obligation may be outsourced to a third party, provided the accountable institution is given free and easy access to these records. Outsourcing this function to a third party does not discharge the accountable institution from the record-keeping responsibility. Section 24(2) states that the accountable institution will still be held liable for the third party's failure to comply with this obligation. Section 24(3) stipulates that if an accountable institution appoints a third party to keep records on its behalf, then particulars of the third party must be provided to the Financial Intelligence Center. As in the FAYS Act, records may be kept manually or electronically. A summary of this chapter. The FAYS Act requires stringent record-keeping arrangements. The following records need to be kept: records of known premature cancellations of transactions or financial products by clients of the FSP. Records of complaints received and information on whether the complaints have been resolved. Records of ongoing compliance with the requirements of Section 8 of the FAYS Act. Records of instances of non-compliance with the Act, as well as reasons for non-compliance. Records of ongoing compliance by representatives. In addition, the General Code has additional record-keeping requirements. These include the ability to retrieve records, adequate systems to record verbal and written communications relating to the provision of financial services to clients. The records and documentation must be kept safe from destruction. The records must be kept for 5 years after the termination of the product or for the same period after a financial service was provided. When record keeping is outsourced, records must be available for inspection within 7 days of a request. FICA requires FSPs to keep records of a single transaction or of additional transactions concluded in the course of a business relationship.